Meghan Markle was on Oprah a couple years ago complaining about little Prince Archie, and he might not get the proper title because the royal family's racist, and they might withhold it because she's part Black and so is Archie. And then she went on to say they're so racist, there was concern expressed. They were interested in the royal family about just how dark this baby was going to be. And Chris Rock had some thoughts on that. So brilliant. And it's like between that and the South Park thing, Emily, it's like the comedians they do a better job of bringing home someone's stupid, narcissistic, woke BS than, the pundits could take a year to do.
And it's taken us, like, as a culture several years to where comedians, and Chris Rock is generally pretty fearless, but as a culture where we feel comfortable laughing at Meghan Markle because for a while, her charges of racism to her critics, that this was sort of, any criticism of her was categorically rooted in white supremacy, really cowed a lot of people out of even dealing with it. And I think ended up giving, on a serious note, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry a whole lot of cultural cash. That's how they got deals with Netflix and Spotify to the tune of millions of dollars. They're involved with the Aspen Institute, which is like kind of censorious. They're critiquing our First Amendment and involved with a First Amendment type of group or a press freedom type of group. And all of that is because they were able to build and build and build on their reputation in the absence of criticism, because so many people were afraid to criticize them in the early years that they were weaponizing those charges of racism. It's not, of course, to say that they didn't get any of it, but to cast, categorically all of the critics as racist has always been ridiculous. People loved Meghan Markle until she started being annoying, and that's when the tide turned.
That's actually a very good point. I would like it noted for the record that I was one of the early critics and was onto her game very early on. I was on that Piers Morgan show that wound up in him leaving Good Morning Britain. And we were both ripping on that Oprah interview. It was absurd on its face if you were just objective and not under the woke spell of like, oh, we've got to support her because she's got a Black mother. No, this is a nonsense lying person. And if you paid any attention to her, it became apparent pretty quick. The thing is, though, she won't own up to any of this. Now, certainly she's not going to reverse her claim on the racism just because Chris Rock said it, though Harry seemed to, right? He did his book tour, Eliana, and he was like, did she say that? Did she use the term racism? And Tom Bradbury's like, well, she said, that they were concerned about just what color the baby's skin was going to be. And he's like, she didn't use the term racist. So that somehow means that's not what she was implying, even though all the news media ran with, she says there's a racist in the royal family, and she never went out to correct them. Will she come out to correct herself? Because she also said the royal family's racist because there's been debates about what title little Archie's going to get. And she suggested that's because she's half Black and Archie's 1/4 Black. And that was her other charge of racism. And now we get the update today via the Daily Mail. Harry and Meghan have christened their daughter Princess Lilibet Diana, and they have updated the website, or will now be updating the website to call little Archie Prince Archie. And the whole concern was, when Charles becomes king, will they get what is normally bestowed to the grandchildren of the monarch, which is the title of Prince and Princess? And she was saying they're talking about not giving that to him. Well, they got it. So are we reversing our claims of racism now, or aren't we? Where do we stand on that?
So ridiculous to me that Harry, on that point, acts like he would never say anything negative about his family. If my memory serves correctly, he basically said that of them. And beyond that, these two ditched the royal family, came to the States. It's not clear to me why, having said everything they've said about the royals and the culture of the palace, why they would want these titles for their children. That seems
exactly
somewhat
right.
puzzling to me.
Because they have their titles and they have their royal stationery, and this means nothing to them, but it's super fun to be a royal. So you can pound sand if you don't like it. And they may or may not go to the coronation. They've been invited to the coronation, but these two losers, I mean, as if they're going to skip that. Does anybody believe that? Have they ever chosen to forego a chance to be the center of attention or on cam? They will be there.
I mean, Lord knows those Netflix cameras are following them to that coronation.
I know, it's their only cultural relevance.
But maybe not, because again, like, they've had projects scuttled in like the last year. I think interest in them is really waning. There's a lot of interest, obviously, in like people who are willing to criticize them. Like you, Meghan, your stuff does really well when you talk about them because there's a huge market for it that's not being served. Because people are actually like, what are you talking about? You're insulting this country. You're insulting decent human beings, and you're trying to make money and profit off of all of it. And then you want to turn around and use those profits to censor us, to make our lives more unfair, Spare, to do all
Yes.
of these different things that is an abuse of your power. And so I think people are absolutely sick of it. So to the extent, I actually don't know how much longer they'll really be able to monetize this at the scale that they were originally, because I don't think there's much interest or an appetite for lionizing them, at least right now. And if they aren't going to stop, if they're not going to take any deals that stop short of lionizing them, I mean, their cash cow might be in trouble.
They're loathed now. They've lost all their approval. They were above water before their Netflix special and the book Spare, and now they're below water, both of them. They're the least popular royals. They've overtaken Prince Andrew as the least popular royals, and that took some doing. So that's that for them.